what you're saying is that you have a lot of items that are auctionable.
Okay? I think so. Sure.
You put them in an auction, whether it's an Eddie Murray collection or say a 57 Aaron in a 7 condition, something that's auctionable. You don't have to do a buy it now. It's not a $5 card, and you've got hundreds or thousands of dollars in those lots, and the auction houses or the consigners will handle that. You're spending time figuring out what's the value of it, and I'm stopping short of that. I'm thinking, what is it auctionable? Whether it's a $500 card or a $750 card, it's a card that probably, and frankly, what we learned in 2020 is that any buy it nows that people did on eBay from last March or April, they're probably feeling pretty stupid.
Yeah.
Because things are double now. And anything even in the summer, that if you put a buy it now, it probably sold. If you let it ride with an auction, you may have been very pleasantly surprised. So I'm breaking things into auction or not auction. And the not auction doesn't mean they're no good. It just means the auction houses are going to say, I'd have to group that into a cohesive lot to take those, because otherwise I'm not going to auction off $10 cards.
And then the dilemma that I have in my mind there too, and I see exactly what you mean. And like when I bought before from Huggins and Scott, I think while I paid a pretty significant amount of money, I feel like I got a great overall deal because I did buy in bulk, so to speak, thinking on the other side. Would it make sense for my family to put 100 different Murray autos in one auction on Huggins and Scott or anywhere else? If they would take the time and either work with a consignor or sell them themselves, they'd make more money selling them individually or in smaller groups than they would in a lot of 100 different like autos or something like that.
You're going to take.
So that's the challenge too.
Yeah, 100 of the same, even though they're different, they're the same. You can only sell to Murray fanatic, and you know who those are. Right. So,
but telling them by the ones and twos, that becomes that time versus money. What do they want to do? Do they want to take the time to sell 100 different cards, 100 different lots, or in 75 different lots, or sell them all in one and get one lump sum? That's the kind of discussions and the kind of stuff I need to detail to them, either in person or in writing or both, quite frankly.
Yeah, I agree. And I have the additional consideration because there's the time versus money. If you take more time, you'll get more money. But I have third consideration. It's the space dimension. I have too many cubic feet of cards.
Understood.
Okay? So that really would make people want to hustle up. That if you had tons of cards, literally and figuratively, then your family's going to say, we've got to move these out. And so the decision would be made that the time and the space is more important than getting a little bit more money for it.
Agreed.
And so those are the things I want to sell ahead of time. Because I'm willing to take the time, because if there's, whether you have to sell your Murrays one at a time, so ultimately one at a time, maximize the price, but it takes the longest.
Amen.
Okay, shoot down this idea. If I got rid of everything, my goal is, if I thought I had 100 months to live, which I hope I have a lot more, I would get rid of 1% a month for 100 months. That's 8+ years. So over years, you get rid of 1%. And I would keep my wall of fame. After I die, so if I can predict my death to the exact month, which I don't think I'll be able to, so in 100 months, no, I don't think that's going to happen. And then I'm left with a wall of 1,000 graded cards. Would I sell that wall? Do you think somebody would want the wall intact? Or would somebody say, I'll buy it and I'll bust it up and there are going to be some good cards in there? But you've already seen a few things there. There's some things that would easily sell individually.
Oh, for tons. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a challenge too. I mean, because for you, it's an intact wall. For the next person, it may be, I really like those 500 cards that I'd want to keep. I mean, for you, there's the allure of it's the Beckett collection, which of course has an amazing cachet, as it should. And that would drive things as well. But you're right, it's still a challenge.
One of the very first decisions on this mortality stuff is we are going to die eventually. And something's going to happen to our cards, to our collection. So maybe the first decision is it going to be, I guess you could give it to a museum and you'd be done. Actually, you can't even give cards to a museum unless you want to endow the display and the upkeep and all that stuff. So that's not even a no-brainer. But the very first decision, is this going to be an inheritance? It's going to be a liquidity event, or it's going to be given to somebody who's going to do whatever they want to with it and they decide, or are you going to say, I want it to be sold and I want the money to be split among my heirs? They would see it with a dollar sign, and I have no problem with that. And I think that's more than we think, because you have to be really passionate. Again, in 2020, whatever your collection was worth in 2019 is worth double now in many cases. And that gets it up to where people say, would I rather have in some cases, it's a car or the collection, or
Sure.
a house or the collection. So
Right.
I've seen some of your stuff. It would make a significant difference to the lives of your kids or your heirs,
Sure.
or charitable stuff, whatever you want to do. No, in other words, the cards, but it's your call if you want this to be inherited as a collection or if you want it to be liquefied. And in my case, I think it'll be liquefied, and that's okay. And I want to
Right.
begin that process. And you've already convinced me now, as I'm talking through this, that keeping my wall intact is probably making a super deal for one person who buys it.
Yeah, exactly.
And then takes time to break it up and realizes that there's a lot of nuggets in there.
Absolutely.
That nobody wants them all.
And I would hope that, there would be people within your family, whether there would be there's nuggets, so to speak, that they would want to keep.
See,
because, it's a family legacy with you.
But people can't make the decision. So if you're to ask your heirs, would you rather have the collection or would you rather have the money? Yeah. Number one, they don't know how much money that is. Number two, they're trying to figure out what answer do you want? They want you. They probably think Brad wants us to say, "Oh, that collection was so important to you. We would never sell it. We'll just keep it if we're going to have a room in our house dedicated to you, and we're going to keep it."
Not really.
Okay, but if you say, "Wait a minute, it's thousands of dollars or whatever," they say, "Oh, it's thousands of dollars." In that case, buying something real that could change their life. So when you lay that out there, then they say, "Yeah, I probably would rather have the money." And then if they'd rather have the money, can you sell it better or can they sell it better? And chances are you can sell it better.
No doubt I can sell it better. The question is, can I let go of it in my lifetime? That becomes the hard part too.
Here's how I've changed that paradigm. Can I let go of 90% of it? 95% of it, 99% of it? Can I greatly reduce, not necessarily the value, but the complexity? And that's my pledge is too strong a word, but that's my intention to my wonderful wife who tolerates my hobby, which is a hobby with a very capital H, I think. I have another theory, and that is that the smaller the box, the more perceived value.
Okay.
When your heirs come in, if something happened to you or me right now, they'd come in, they would see that the small boxes must have good stuff in them. The tubs must not. And that's my dilemma, because I have some of the stuff you have in those vault boxes. I have probably equivalent stuff, but it's in a monster box. And people are going to think, it's a monster box. How good could it be? He would keep that stuff over here. And so I'm fighting against that urge.
Oh, I know.
Because if I put them in vault boxes, I wouldn't have room.
Yeah.
That's my theory. The bigger the box.
Yeah, and I said, I would probably feel better about oh my gosh, I drop dead tomorrow. What in the world are they going to do? First of all, they'd probably be like, we can't even think about that for a while. Especially if my wife's still here, because it would still be in the house. But if my wife and I were gone at the same time and my kids inherited all this and the house and everything, talk about overwhelming. Oh my goodness, I can't even imagine. And the basement is loaded. I've got in the basement, Jim, it's the Murray collection, which you pretty much just saw. It's either on these shelves or in that closet. That's pretty much, and on I think I'd shown you this before too, my Murray collection, in a fairly compact area, but it's still 3,400 different items, not to mention a whole bunch of extras. And then I've got under the cabinets over here, I've got the vintage stuff. And but in the basement, I've got monster boxes / I've got thousands of 1984 tops in order. I've got thousands of 1985 tops in order. I've got shoe boxes or monster boxes of low-end, late 80s, early 90s stars that are just pretty much garbage. I still got all that stuff.
That's something you could thin out. You'd lose no sleep over it. You won't get
and I need to. I either need to
and I have stuff like that. I need to do that. But again, you're affirming my theorem that the bigger the box, the worse they will perceive that it is. So if a monster box, they're not going to think it's a monster box of 52 tops high numbers.
Exactly. Yeah, and the educational part is so hard because, perfect example, a 1990 Donruss Eddie Murray. Well, could there be a cheaper, more useless Murray card in the world than that? No. But then I just recently acquired the 1990 Donruss Acquiesce, or whatever they call it, which is one of 10.
Really?
There's like 10 of those.
Yeah.
For an untrained eye, they'd be like, that's the same card. One of them's worth a nickel and one of them's worth $150. That's the dilemma too. It's like,
but grading solves that dilemma.
It does. And of course, that costs more money too. It's amazing that like my Murray collection, just what's on Beckett, Jim. I think on Beckett, I have the Beckett organizer has 2,400 and something cards that are on the list there that I have. The book value of those is $25,000 to $28,000, and then you throw in the other 1,000 items I have that are not on there,
or not priced.
The blank backs Yeah, but then you get into the NAs. My NAs, and that's something I've got to do on a spreadsheet again. I've got to be able to say, Beckett doesn't price this 1 of 5 auto, but I've got to, because I need to let them know what this might be worth.
But not necessarily. You just need to let them know that it's auctionable, because your estimate will be based on whatever at the time, and they're thinly traded. So hey, that's an auction item, and I would get slapped. If it's something like that, if it's peculiar, I got to get slapped.